Somewhere on a brokerage dock this morning, a man who worked 40 years for his retirement is standing in front of a trawler with a price that looks too good to be true. $32,000. Teak trim glowing in the morning sun, a flybridge up top, a proper galley down below. The kind of boat that was supposed to be the reward at the end of a long working life. And the broker in the clean polo shirt is standing right beside him, smiling, because he already knows exactly what that boat is going to do to that man's savings. That is not a boat. That is a slow leak with a hull wrapped around it, and the price on the sign is the most expensive thing about it. Here is the thing nobody on that dock will say out loud. For every honest, cheap trawler out there, and there are honest ones, I have made whole videos about the boats that will outlast the man who buys them. There are 3 more sitting in that same row, wearing the same gray teak and the same low number on the sign, that will quietly drain your retirement right down to the last dollar and leave you stranded 100 miles from the nearest yard. The cheap price is not the gift you think it is. The cheap price is the bait, and the hook is set deep. I have spent more years than I care to count crawling through the bilges of these boats with a flashlight in my teeth and a moisture meter in my hand, and I can tell you the dangerous ones fall into a handful of families. 6 of them to be exact. 6 kinds of trawler that sell for next to nothing because the people who built them, or the people who own them, already learned the hard way and just want out.
Stick with me here, because by the end of this, you will be able to walk down that dock and pick every single one of them out before the broker ever opens his mouth. And the cruelest part is this: the boat that bankrupts you almost never looks like the problem. It looks like the deal of the decade. Let me start with the one that fools the most good people, because it is also the prettiest boat tied to the dock. Number 1 is the wooden-hulled trawler. Now, I love a wood boat. There is nothing on this earth that looks quite like a varnished wooden hull catching the early light. And that, right there, is the whole problem, because that beauty is exactly what switches a careful man's brain off. You will find these listed at prices that make your heart skip. A big, classic 42-foot wooden trawler for under $20,000. Some of them are free. Read that again. People give these boats away, and you need to ask yourself hard why a man would hand you a $40,000 looking yacht for absolutely nothing. Because a wooden hull is not something you maintain. It is something you fight every single year for as long as you are foolish enough to own it. The planks work against the fastenings as the boat flexes. The fastenings, the bronze screws and bolts holding the entire boat together, corrode quietly down inside the wood where no eye can see them, and one quiet afternoon a plank lets go below the waterline. Fresh rainwater sitting in the bilge rots wood faster than salt ever could, so the boat is eating itself even while it sits unused at the dock with a bilge pump cycling on every few minutes just to stay afloat. And here is where the trap snaps shut. Most boatyards today flatly refuse to haul a wooden boat onto their stands, and the few old shipwrights left who actually know how to refasten a hull or sister in a rotten frame charge like the surgeons they are, because they are artists, and there are almost none of them left alive. You cannot insure most of these without a specialist wood survey, and you cannot finance one at all. No bank will touch it. So you pay cash. You pour 20 grand into her the first season chasing leaks, and the day you finally cry uncle and try to sell, you learn the same lesson the last fellow did. Nobody will take it. That is why it was cheap. That is why it was free. Number 2 looks like fiberglass from 10 feet away and will trap you worse than the wood ever could. The ferro-cement trawler. Back in the late 60s and 70s, there was a craze where folks built boat hulls out of steel rod and wire mesh troweled over with a layer of cement.
On paper, it sounded like genius.
Cheap material, immensely strong. Build it yourself in the back garden. In practice, for every one done properly by a true craftsman, there were 100 laid up by a dreamer in his driveway who ran out of money, ran out of skill, and never really knew what he was doing in the first place. Here is the trap, and it is a nasty one. A ferro hull can look absolutely flawless on the outside. Smooth, faired, freshly painted, gorgeous. And right underneath that paint, the steel armature can be rusting. And the moment water reaches that rebar and it begins to swell, the cement around it spalls and cracks from the inside out, and there is no honest way to fix it. The killer is you cannot survey it properly. A moisture meter cannot read through an inch of cement the way it reads fiberglass, and most surveyors will not put their professional name anywhere near one. No surveyor means no insurance. No insurance means no marina will rent you a slip, and no buyer will ever take it off your hands.
You will see a solid-looking 40-foot ferro trawler listed for $9,000 and think you have stumbled onto the steal of the century. What you have actually found is a concrete anchor that you will one day pay a yard thousands of dollars to cut up and haul to the landfill. Disposal. Let that word land, because for an awful lot of these boats, that is the real final chapter. Number 3. Rusts. The steel-hulled trawler. Now, I want to be scrupulously fair here because a properly built, properly maintained steel boat is a genuinely wonderful thing, and the serious blue water crowd swears by them for very good reasons. Steel is immensely strong, and you can mend it anywhere in the world there is a man with a welder. But the steel boat that is cheap, the one sitting neglected at the back of the yard with the bargain sticker, is cheap for one reason and one reason only, and that reason is rust. Steel does not rot quietly and politely the way wood does.
It corrodes, and it does it in precisely the two places you cannot lay an eye on. Behind the spray foam insulation glued to the inside of the hull, where warm condensation sits trapped against cold, bare metal for decades. And down under the waterline, where the bottom paint quietly failed 3 owners ago. A steel hull that gleams under a fresh coat of paint can be wafer thin in patches you will never find until a surveyor with an ultrasonic thickness gauge starts taking readings and the numbers come back at 1/3 of what they should be. And the repair is brutal. To do it honestly, you sandblast the entire hull back to bright, bare metal. You cut out and weld in every wasted plate. You reprime and recoat the whole thing, and that is a job that climbs deep into the tens of thousands of dollars and ties your boat up on the hard for months while the yard bill ticks over. A man buys a $30,000 steel trawler convinced he just got himself a battleship for pennies, and a year later, he has handed the yard $40,000 more just to make her safe to leave the dock. The metal was never the problem. It was the years of neglect baked quietly into it. If this is the kind of straight talk nobody else on the dock is willing to give you, do me one small favor and tap that subscribe button. I put one of these out every single week. No hype, no nonsense, no sales pitch, just the stuff the man in the polo shirt is praying to God you never figure out before you sign. Now let me show you the 3 that hurt the worst, because the very next one drinks fuel like the gauge is broken clean off. Number 4 is the twin gas engine trawler, and this is the one that catches the buyer who did almost everything else right. He knew to insist on fiberglass. He knew the price was good.
What he forgot to check was what is actually bolted to the stringers down in the engine room. And on this one, it is 2 petrol engines instead of 1 honest diesel. Now you already know my feelings on twin engines from everything else I have ever told you. 2 engines means 2 of every bill, 2 sets of filters, 2 raw water pumps, 2 of everything that wears. But petrol makes it worse on every single count. A pair of big gas engines, your Crusaders, your Marinized Chevy 350s, shoving a heavy, full-displacement hull through the water will drink fuel in a way that will genuinely take your breath away, because these hulls were never built to go fast, and the engines burn the petrol trying anyway. The honest single diesel sips 2, maybe 3 gallons an hour. The twin gas boat can gulp 12, 15, more for the very same trip at the very same speed.
Then you have the ethanol in modern fuel, which chews up old rubber fuel lines and gums up carburetors and turns a system that has sat one winter into a weekend of pure misery. And then there is the part that should stop you absolutely cold. Petrol fumes are heavier than air, so they pour down into the bilge and they pool there silently. And one spark from a tired starter or a chafed wire, and that boat is a fireball. And sometimes the people aboard her go up with it. Diesel simply does not do that, ever. So you have a boat that costs a fortune to run, costs more to insure if you can insure it at all, and carries a risk a single diesel never will. There is a reason that gas trawler sits $5,000 cheaper than the diesel one beside it. That $5,000 you saved at the dock, you will hand straight back to the fuel pump inside one summer.
Number 5 is the Orphan, and this is the boat with the rare engine and the dead-end parts list. The one that strands you exactly when you are furthest from help and need it most. You will find some genuinely beautiful, exotic-looking trawlers out there, often something imported, something European, something with a name on the transom you have to go and look up. The hull might be perfectly sound, the price is a delight, and down in that engine room sits a diesel that was only ever built for a handful of years by a company that folded 2 decades ago. Or one that never had any real parts support in this country to start with. Here is what that means on a wet Sunday night. The Ford Lehman, the Perkins, the Cummins engines I am forever steering people toward. You can buy a part for any one of them straight off the shelf at any diesel shop in the country, because they built millions of them and the whole world is full of them. The Orphan engine, you cannot. A raw water pump that runs you $80 for a Lehman runs you $800 for the Orphan, if you can lay your hands on one at all. And the wait is 6 weeks while your boat sits dead in a slip you are still paying rent on. It is the exact same story with the electronics on the newer boats. Pod drives, joystick docking, sealed black boxes that only a factory technician with a special laptop can even talk to, and that technician bills by the hour and drives in from 3 states over. A boat you cannot fix yourself, and cannot pay anybody local to fix either, is not a cheap boat at any price. It is a hostage situation with teak trim. The simple boat is the free boat. The clever boat is the trap. Number 6 is the big one, and I mean that word literally. The oversized liveaboard motor yacht dressed up to sell as a trawler. This is the boat that gets the dreamer every single time because it dangles the most boat for the least money. 53 feet of it. 2 staterooms, 3 heads, a flybridge the size of a back porch, and somehow a price that undercuts the honest little 36-footer tied up 3 slips down. The buyer cannot believe his luck. He is getting twice the boat for less than the small one costs. Here is precisely why. A boat like that is not one boat, it is a floating house absolutely stuffed with systems. And every last one of those systems is a bill standing in line, waiting to land on your dock. Twin turbocharged diesels, and that turbocharger is the very part the honest, simple boats do not have and therefore cannot blow. 2 generators, so you can run the air conditioning. And marine air conditioning is several separate units that fail one at a time, never all at once. A bow thruster, a stern thruster, a water maker full of membranes, hydraulic stabilizers full of seals that weep oil into the bilge, electric heads, a big inverter bank, hundreds of feet of hose and wiring threading the whole thing together.
Every single one of those is a repair waiting its turn, and on a boat that size, the haul out alone, just lifting her out and rolling on fresh bottom paint, costs several times what the little boat does, because every yard on the water charges you by the foot. The slip is longer, so the slip fee is fatter. The insurance rides on a far bigger number. Folks buy these for $80,000, convinced they have outsmarted the entire market, and they spend that much over again inside 2 years just keeping all the toys breathing. It is the most boat for the money right up until the morning you actually own it. After that, it is just the most boat, draining your account a little more every month it sits at the dock, not moving. So there they all are. The wood that rots, the cement that cracks, the steel that rusts, the gas that burns your money, the orphan that strands you, and the floating mansion that nickels and dimes you straight into the ground. 6 cheap trawlers, and every single one of them is cheap for a reason the price tag will never, ever tell you. Now let me give you the honest part, the part that actually protects your savings, because I did not come here just to scare you clean off the water. The whole point of learning the traps is so you can walk right past them and find the good boat. And there absolutely is a good boat sitting in that very same row. 3 things and 3 things only keep your retirement intact. Number 1, before you let yourself fall in love, you check the bones. You want a solid fiberglass hull, not wood, not cement, not neglected steel. You want one slow diesel you have actually heard of, with parts sitting on a shelf, not 2 of anything, and certainly nothing exotic. Number 2, you pay for your own surveyor, a man the broker has never met and does not drink with on a Friday. And you have that boat hauled clean out of the water onto stands, so he can read the hull with his gauge and crawl the engine room with the motor running hard under load, not idling pretty at the dock for 10 minutes. A proper survey costs you a few hundred to a couple of $1,000s, and it is the cheapest insurance you will ever buy in your life, because it is the one thing standing between a deal and a disaster. Number 3, you add up the real number before you sign one thing. Not the asking price painted on the board, the all-in number. The slip, the insurance, the haul-outs, the bottom paint, and the next 2 honest years of the maintenance the last owner quietly skipped. If the boat is $30,000 on the dock, you plan on the real first 2 years costing you a good deal more than that again. If that arithmetic still works for you, then wonderful, go cruising, and never once look back. And if it does not work, you walk, calmly, and there will be another boat behind it. Because in this market, there is always another boat. The cheap number on the sign was never the story, and it never is. The cheap number is just the down payment on everything that comes after, and the broker in the polo shirt is counting on you to fall head over heels in love before you ever sit down and do the cold arithmetic. The folks tied up quiet in the back row who actually got this right, they did the boring part first. They checked the hull, they paid for the survey out of their own pocket, they ran the real all-in numbers with a cold and level head, and then, and only then, did they let themselves want the boat. Do it in that order, and the water is the finest thing you will ever spend your retirement on. Do it the other way round, the way the man in the polo shirt is quietly hoping you will, and the cheapest boat on the whole dock becomes the single most expensive mistake of your entire life. If you got something out of this today, do me that one favor and hit subscribe, because I run one of these down for you every single week. And then do me one more thing before you go. Drop a comment and tell me 3 things. Number 1, which of these 6 boats have you been burned by, or watched somebody you love get burned by? Number 2, what is the worst hidden repair bill you have ever seen land on a trawler after the ink was already dry? And number 3, which boat do you want me to pull apart next, the good or the bad? Tell me down in the comments. I read every one of them, and the answer to one of those questions is going to be next week's video. I will see you on the dock.